ref. Actually got the ball. Good evening, Tottenham fans all around the world, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave, Jack, Soren, Dermot, and Donovan as we build up to what some has billed possibly the last dance for Ange Postecoglou tonight. But look, that's all one big sideshow. At the end of the day, it's all about Tottenham Hotspur, the glory of the football club, and hopefully, regardless of what it means for Ange, I think I speak for most people. We want to go through tonight. We want to get into a semi-final and keep this European run going. So it's a big night for Tottenham Hotspur. It's one of them. We can either come out of it heartbroken and the club is in chaos, or we can move on and, keep dreaming of that trip to Bilbao. But either way, it is a massive game for Tottenham Hotspur tonight. It is do or die. But you know what? Despite everything that's gone on this season, I can't help be pumped up for it, be excited. I've been annoying people in group chats for the last 2 hours. I'm glad we're live because, look, at the end of the day, it is a European quarterfinal. We haven't been here since that run under Pochettino. It's been, six years now? So hopefully we can go out there. Despite everything in the universe, don't get me wrong, I'm not deluded. Everything in the universe, all the stats, lack of leadership, poor away form, everything else, everything in the universe is telling me it can't be done. However, I choose to believe there's still that 10% hope. That door is still ajar, and hopefully we can go in and burst it wide open tonight. But it's a massive game. Look, I'm not even going to bother going around asking everyone how they are. I think we're all in the same. Just going to give everybody, some details, and then we're going to crack straight on into it. We are playing away tonight at the Deutsche Bank Park in Frankfurt. Kickoff is 8 p.m. Referee is Davide Massa from Italy, and VAR is Alejandro Di Paolo from Italy as well. Now, I know they have problems with corruption in that league. Hopefully, that's not why they've drafted in them today, to help Frankfurt get through. And then if you want to watch the game in TV, in UK and Ireland, it's on TNT Sports. In the USA, it's on Paramount Plus. And in Australia, it is on Stan Sport. And then in terms of injury news, Dragusin is out with his knee. Son, of course, in the press conference we were told yesterday, is now out with a foot injury. And then Forrester, Kinski, Reguilon, and Werner are not available for Frankfurt. We did think he'll be back, but Top Muller in his press conference said he doesn't think he'll play today. So Trapp, we're expecting to be out with their number 2 back in. Chandler is out with the hamstring. Hyland and Bibe and Amenda are back. And I do believe Knauf, their main missing player last week, he is back and should probably play some part. So that's everything that everybody needs to know. I'm going to bring up your comments as we go along at home, guys. Just keep getting them in. Honestly, the chat's pinging off. I know how excited you guys are at home. I'm not even going to attempt to try and catch up. I'll just start bringing them up as we go along. Let's just get straight into it. Let's calm the nerves down a little bit. Jack, both sides drew 1-1 last week, which sets up a massive game. Actually, we go to Drew first. Or no, sorry, Soren, we'll go to you first. Both sides drew 1-1 last week, which sets up a massive game tonight. Winner takes all. Given the way Spurs played in the second half last Thursday, hitting the bar twice, creating loads, should Spurs fans actually be confident we can go there and finish the job tonight? Because, I've been listening around all week, keeping an eye on socials, and look, not many Spurs fans are too confident going into it. But if you take off the performance last week against Frankfurt, we gave it a good go.
Oh, all I'm going to say is, it's the Tottenham boys making all the noise everywhere we go. Everywhere we go. Oh, we're bringing the cup home this year. I don't care what anybody says. I've had my coffee. I've been on the coke. I've been sniffing the Lucasade. We're doing it tonight, baby. We are confident. We are going all the way to Bilbao.
Come on.
And all I'm going to say is, tonight, there's only one winner, Tottenham. The mighty Spurs are bringing it home tonight. So, enough from me. Confidence is there. I don't have a doubt. I might not be about in 3 hours' time, but we are winning it.
Was your confidence not dented, baby, by the performance against Wolves at the weekend? I think that's what's maybe tempered a lot of expectations heading into the night, Soren.
Look, I think it's like we say at the end of the season, everybody's mind is on the beach. I think everybody's head is on tonight. I just think that the Premier League has gone. It's a shit show in the Premier League. And this is all we have left of this season. And I just think everybody's head is on tonight's match.
I just said something quickly, Dave, on the fan show, to your question there. I did say that, some people did sort of laugh because I sort of pre-emphasized or, pre-stated that it's maybe a bit of a happy clapper way to look at things. But we were the better team in that first leg, especially in that second half. We were all over them. We, in my opinion, deserved at least a 3-1. And the goal that even Frankfurt scored was a hell of a finish off of pretty much, a real bit of quality off of Ekitike. But apart from that, they didn't really have that many dangerous, sort of moments in the game, and they took their chances. The big thing is that we just didn't take ours. And if we play similarly well in this game and we actually do have some bit of shooting boots on and we can put away some of those chances this time, or maybe the bar or the woodwork happens to be a bit kinder to us, there's every chance that we do win this game based off that logic, because Spurs were the better team in the first leg. Of course, we'll get onto this, but the away form is very different from our home form this season. But yeah, Dave, I did bring that up in the fan show yesterday, that if you do look at the first leg's performance, Spurs were absolutely good enough to have won that game 3-1. So maybe they'll look at this game as an opportunity to finish the job that they should have done in that first leg.
Well, let me throw a caveat question then at you, Jack, because look, I do understand what you're saying there to a large degree. We were able to turn it on to a certain degree. Let's see if we can do the same tonight. But Tottenham Hotspur have lost 6 of their last 7 games on the road in all competitions and have failed to score in 4 of those defeats. Frankfurt have not lost at home in the Europa League this season. So can Spurs survive 90 minutes or potentially more if it goes to extra time and penalties tonight in one of Europe's loudest and most hostile grounds? Or will the inexperience and lack of leadership show tonight? Because it's come back to bite us a lot this season. That lack of leadership, that sort of inexperience to a large degree. It's come back to bite us. Can we?
I'll hop in after Jack's done on this one.
I think it's an excellent counterpoint, Dave. I mean, I don't have much of an answer to it because the stats are there and the facts are there that Spurs have been terrible away from home. And my logic is just that these guys will look at maybe the job that they did in the first leg and just realize, listen, we left this game up for grabs here, but this time around, let's try to play just as well and actually finish, these chances, actually focus on being able to get the ball over the line this time in terms of actually putting away some of those opportunities that I'd expect them to create in this leg. I know Frankfurt will come at us. I know they'll make it a difficult atmosphere, but I'm under the belief that Spurs will still be able to create moments in this game and still will be able to create opportunities. And it's just about them being clinical enough to take them. And then when it comes to playing away from home, I know you say about finishing the game. I know we'll get onto this a bit later. I think it's more important about surviving the first 20 to 30 minutes, really, because I think that's when usually the crowd, is always going to be behind the home team. They're going to be cheering them on. They're going to be booing every single time that we get the ball. They're going to be jeering at our own players. They're going to make it very, very hostile for us in those opening minutes. I imagine the players won't even be able to hear each other in the opening minutes. But if you can potentially punch them early in the mouth, maybe with a nice goal, or maybe just try to sort of take control of the game in possession, play some nice stuff, you can quiet down the crowd to some degree in that manner. So I think it's more important, Dave, to actually start off strongly instead of maybe, clinging on. I think it's probably the best way for Spurs to win this game is to try to maybe, I don't know, grab an early goal or at least score first in that first half. And maybe that would be our manner to win it in the second.
So I agree with you, Jack. I agree with Jack. So first I'll pick up Chad, pick up everybody. I've been away for a while. It's good to talk to Spurs again. And you know what? Crazy world. But like Soren said earlier, Tottenham aside, everything aside, now it's just Tottenham. Ange politics, Levy politics, this new owner coming in politics, just put all to the side. These are the nights that we can all unite under one flag and just be like, hey, this is Tottenham Hotspur, right? We're going to band together as brothers in this. We're going to fight for the club. So let's put that out of the way. I do agree with Jack when he says that there are ways that you have to organize a game. You have to manage game, especially certain games. And this is a game in a season that is a must-win game. You can't lose this game. And so we've employed Ange Postecoglou to do that. I disagree with Jack in the way that you should attack strong right away. Ideally, in an ideal world, you want that early goal. I do agree you have to take the game in phases. He mentioned 20 minutes. I coach 15 because they can split into 6 15-minute chunks. First 15 minutes, you batter the hatches because you don't want to concede in that 15 minutes, right? You don't want to concede. Next 15 minutes, that's when you push, and that's when you grow into the game. Then that last 15 before the half, you don't want to concede before the half either. And then halftime comes in, you alternate. If you figure out what's going on, if Poro's getting the run around, if figure something out, second half minutes, you don't want to concede in that first few minutes of that second half because it kills the game. It gives the team momentum. that second 15 of the half, you're just chill. You're just chilling your vibes because you know you've gotten this far. And at the last 15, you don't want to concede either. So you batten down the hatches again. And during those phases, you play football and you hope that with Ange ball and the tactics and the patterns of play you've developed over the seasons and playing with each other, you can develop scoring opportunities. And that's when you need to take them. And we're confident in the first leg. We were ripping them from distance. Our wonder kid was kicking the crossbar from a freaking 30, 50 feet out. It was amazing. But yes, you have to take your chances. You have to put the ball in the back of the net. So if we can do that, and last thing I'll touch on when I said I wanted to jump in for Jack on this point, back to your initial question there, Davo. Great question, by the way, saying, hey, Tottenham historically, we're bad. Like, we're bad, right? But in Europe, and not just in Europe, but away from home. How is our away form going to dictate this game? But in football, special things happen. And when you're a big club, and I hate to say it for those people who love to shit on Tottenham Hotspur are a big club. Okay, we're up there with the likes of the Uniteds. Right? It's the original ones. Okay, like the original like a white shirt Blancos, Los Blancos, right? Trying to think of other good clubs, Lazio, right? I'm trying to think. Everton was up there too, right? Like these big clubs that were up there, right? That have gotten over the line. Everton's maybe not so much, but have gotten over the line and gotten those trophies. On this night, we can call on that heritage. We can call on that history, and that can come through us. And I know it's really, really cliche and really what's the word? Almost a bit cringy here, but we have to laugh at Dermo when he said, "Oh, I feel the spirit of Bill Nick coming through my veins." Well, that's real and that's true because we have history and we have great history, and that's going to get us over the line tonight. So as long as Ange can relay that message, then you know what, we'll be fine. But right now we have a big debate about Ange, and so I'll just leave it with that. So
no, look, go on, Dermo.
No, go on, Dave. Go on. Sorry.
No, you're going. Go on.
Jack is right. The first 15 minutes is blooming crucial. I don't sort of agree with Donovan. I'm sorry, Donovan, but the first 15 minutes is absolutely crucial because what you want to do is get an early goal and silence the crowd. Yeah. If you can punch them early, then you make it easy for yourself because then they're going to start turning on their players. That the atmosphere sort of turns on its head, and you've got to start out with all guns blazing. You've got to take the game to them, and for the first 15, 20 minutes, just give it everything. Get a goal, silence the crowd, and then settle down and sort of play your own game. Also, the players tonight, this is an opportunity for players to come out to be men. This is a chance for them to come out and put to rest all this bullshit we hear. Sorry, Dave, swearing, but
no.
Yeah, all this BS we hear about players. Tonight's a chance for them to prove to them we do care about the club. We do care about the crest. We do care about the fans. We will turn up tonight. And it's not going to be an easy game, but Tottenham Hotspur will do it. On this day in 2019, we reached the Champions League semi-final. On this day in 1961, we won the league. All the stars are aligning. We've got great history in this competition. Twice winners, runners-up in it. We've been to a semi-final as well in it. We've got great history in this UEFA Cup, Europa League. And we can make it. We become 3 times Europa League winners, and I think we will. And with Tottenham Hotspur, we'll go there. But the first 15 minutes is crucial. If we go 1-0 down, I fear for us. If we go 1-0 up, and then
that's it, Dermo. Like I get it. Like we can all agree that first goal is important. We need to get that first goal, but we don't need to concede that early goal. Continue, man. Like,
I mean, just to throw a spanner in, I don't think we do need to score the first goal, but it's not necessarily has to come in. The first 15 minutes are about holding that team back and quieting that crowd down, making the crowd a little bit more nervous. We've got to go out and attack for once. The first 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, it's got to be us. Doesn't matter if we don't score. We've got to be coming. We've got to be peppering that goal. We've got to be shooting. We've got to be doing everything we can. The goal will come. We will win tonight. The goal will come, but we have to quieten that crowd down. We cannot let them.
Well said, Soren. Well said. And don't get me wrong. It's not like we're playing prime Mourinho ball for the first 15 minutes. Eric Dyer on the 6-yard box, heading balls out. No, like we're playing pragmatic ball where it's like we're playing Ange ball, but we're not like playing those risky passes, or you're spinning the 6 in front of your own, like we did in the North London Derby, away from home, Maddison and in front of his own 18-yard box, spinning, losing the ball. We don't do that shit in the first 15. We play good, pragmatic football for the 15 and grow into the game and don't concede that early goal. That's what I should have said. I should have said
For
that.
me,
because
look, going into this game, it's all about dealing with the nerves of the occasion and leaders stepping up. Your senior players stepping up tonight. Look, one thing we can't ignore is our horrific record away from home in Europe, over the last few years. You look at Dynamo Zagreb, we lost 4-1. You go to Paços de Ferreira, Vitesse Arnhem, NS Mora. We've been embarrassed down the years away from home. Even this season, Galatasaray, Rangers, AZ Alkmaar, we have not shown up away from home. We are up against it tonight. Our away form in the Premier League is shit. Our away form in London derbies is absolutely shit. What we need tonight is players that can step up and handle the occasion. Someone like Vicario needs to be on it within the first few minutes, not what he done against Wolves, because the reality is he set the tone for that performance with how nervous he was from the off, with the pressure sort of getting to him. We cannot afford silly errors. We conceded a goal and we were 1-0 down against Brentford earlier on in the season, very early on. People didn't even have their tellies turned on at the weekend and we were 1-0 down. And inside 7 minutes, we were 1-0 down last week against Frankfurt as well. We cannot afford to make them mistakes or take 10, 15 minutes to get into the game. Realistically, Frankfurt are going to press us tonight. They're going to use the atmosphere. They're going to use the crowd and they're going to sense an early goal, considering they got one last week and what happened against Wolves. They are going to come at us nice and early. Let's not forget, against Bournemouth, we could have been 1 or 2 down inside 3 minutes as well. They're going to put the press on us and they're going to look for us to try and play through them and make the same mistakes. For me, if I'm Ange Postecoglou, I'm telling my players, for the first 5-10 minutes, put it down the channels, put it into your striker, put it in over the top into someone like James Maddison. Don't allow that press to be effective. Don't make any stupid mistakes. If we can survive the first 10, 15 minutes without doing anything like that, I do think we can start growing a little bit more comfortable into the game. Usually when you look at the first half, it's that 15-minute period just before, in between the first 15 and the last 15 and a half, where we tend to sort of get on top of the game, play a bit of football. We need to take our opportunity there. But the last 10 and the first 10 outside of halftime is a big problem for Tottenham Hotspur. We concede a lot of goals in the last 10 before halftime and the first 10 minutes outside as well. So the players are going to have to really step up tonight. We need someone like, especially without Son, our job's going to be made even harder tonight, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But we need someone like James Maddison to come to the fore tonight. We need whoever's playing up front, whether it's Richarlison or Solanke, to really step up tonight. If Brennan Johnson's out on the right tonight, he needs to go from a fucking boy to a man tonight. He has to step up. At the end of the day, this isn't beyond the realms of impossibility, but we need to see so much that we haven't seen so far this season. Can we do it? It's a big ask. Maybe Son not being there could be a blessing in disguise. Maybe the other players might feel more ownership and have to take more leadership in the situation. We don't know, but we are up against it tonight. But that first 10, 15 minutes, we cannot make mistakes and give up chances like we have done in previous games, because we will absolutely crumble. This is a massive game tonight, because at the end of the day, I'm telling you now, if we go 1 down there, it's going to be 2, it's going to be 3, and it's going to be 4, and we are going to absolutely crumble under the pressure. You've got to remember, the pressure's on them players, and not only that, the pressure's on Ange Postecoglou tonight. So if we go 1 down, it's only going to get worse. We have not shown an ability to be able to claw that back away from home. I would argue we actually need to score the first goal tonight, actually, if we want to give ourselves some confidence and something to hang on to. But we've got to go out there and be brave. We can't go out there and be pussies like we approach a lot of these away games where we're scared, standoffish, afraid of the crowd, stuff like that. You've got to find your cojones tonight. That's what you've got to find. And at the end of the day, they'd be moaning all this time. Come up, keep coming, support us. We're here again. Now it's over to you tonight. We need something to get behind. You turn up tonight. A lot of these players said they want to win this for Ange, especially Mickey van der Ven. Okay, show that on the pitch tonight. What we need is great desire, hunger, and some fucking passion tonight. That's what we need, and hopefully we fucking get it. Anyway, we've got a couple of chats here to get to. The Big D has gifted out Irish Hotspur membership, and that's gone to Paul G. And he's already said thank you in the chat. Big up, Paul G. Very, very kind of you. Dermatron's also gifted one out, Jacko.
Minchi, conveniently rhymed. Big up to Minchi, and I believe she does watch a lot of us, so appreciate you, Tron, and I'm glad that she was giving it. Thank you, Tron.
Big up, Minchie, and big up, Tron. Really appreciate the support. And then the Big D says, the season aside, player for player, we would be favourites. We just need to give 100. These can be beat. They aren't playing Barcelona, I believe. Come on, you Spurs. I mean, Soren, you're nodding your head here.
You're on mute there.
Mean, there's one or two people think I'm delusional. And going into these games, I'm normally quite nervous. I'm quite, your stomach starts... I have none. I don't know. I just think it's our night. I just really do. I just think everything that's gone wrong this season, everything that's been shit in the club, I just think it's written in the stars that we're going to go on and win the cup. I really do. And I might be delusional. I might be.
Is there any part of you that thinks we're up against it tonight?
No.
Look,
no, I am
there,
absolutely confident.
You got to take that into consideration, Soren.
No, I'm absolutely. I look at the season and I think, do you know what? It's been an absolute shit show. It's been the worst season any of us have probably ever seen. And I just think when it's this poor and this crap, something's going to happen. Something's going to turn around and just be like, didn't see that coming. And I just think tonight is the night we'll go through. The league form will probably still be shit, and I just think all the players are just sat there thinking, do you know what? We're just in this for the trophy, and I just think it's going to be one of those talking points in years to come where you say which team had the worst season ever, but are champions of Europe, and I think that's going to be us. I just think it's one of those where we're going to look back and say Ange was the worst manager we've ever had, but the most successful because he won us a European Cup, or of modern era, should I say. I could be eating my words at the end of the night, but I don't know. I just think that we've had two big games away where the atmosphere has been absolutely hostile. We've been away, Fenerbahce, and I just think the players kind of know what they're going to expect now, and we're a season in now. These youngsters have been there. I'm not saying that they've been there, done it type thing, but they've been there and they have witnessed these type of atmospheres. And look, going to Frankfurt tonight is not going to be easy. I know it's not. I'm not that stupid, but I just see us coming away with a win. I don't know what to tell you. I don't see any other outcome other than a win.
Look, it's not beyond the realms of impossibility. We have won big away from home this season, much earlier in the season. Man United, Man City, if we can harness that sort of performance out here tonight, no, it's not beyond the realms of impossibility that we can do it. But all the odds are stacked up against us. But look, I do agree with what Big D's saying here. Maybe player for player, maybe you would argue, maybe we are favourites. But I just wonder, will them having that goal scorer up front actually be the difference over these two legs at Kike? It'd be very, very interesting. He did score for them. But Big D, look, they're not prime Barcelona, but they did win it back in 2022. I think they've got a lot of Europa League experience now.
Yeah, the know-how.
Lost at home in the Europa League this season. I think in general they've only lost one in the last 24 at home in the Europa League. So their home form is strong. But look, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm always one of them. I'm pumped. I remain hopeful. Let's see what can happen. The Big D. Big up, my man. Really appreciate the support, buddy. But look, I do want to move on. Of course, we are missing Son tonight, which I think is a huge loss. You're taking 11 goals and 11 assists out of the team. He's out with a foot injury. Of course, Postecoglou confirmed yesterday that club captain Son did not travel with this squad out to Germany. And look, in fairness to Son, despite the season that he's had this season in Europe in years gone by, he's been the guy that's made the difference. He's the guy that played a crucial part in our run to the Champions League final. The last time we had a good run in Europe, he was the man of that. Who do we think is going to step up in his absence tonight? Because we need players to step up tonight if we are to go and get a result in Germany.
Maddison, I think he'll step up. I think if Bergville and Bentancur, I think you might get big games out of them. I think that's your midfield tree there: Bergville, Bentancur, and Maddison. I think if you put Tell might be a big game player tonight as well. He might step up himself as well. I think there's a few players in that team that can step up. It's if they want to step up. You know, you got to take this mentality tonight. You're going into war. You're going into football war. That's what you're going into tonight. You're going into their backyard. You got to take that sort of. I always use it with Ireland, like when we used to play England. David know this as well as I do. We're going in there in football war.
Yeah, look, I get that it's war tonight. I get all that. Put the war paint on. No, but answer my question. Look, you're far arsing about Maddison.
I'm not far arsing about What I give you three names.
Yeah, about war. We spoke about that for the last 10 minutes.
No, I give you stuff. Yeah, I give you. I did actually give you three names. I give you Maddison, Bergville, and Bentancur. I said them three players. They were the ones to step up. I was just adding on to that. But no, I get. But we were speaking about the last 20 minutes about going to war. You know, we've moved on now. We're speaking about what players are going to step up in Son's absence. You spoke about Maddison. Look, Maddison, in fairness, he does have 3 away goals this season in the Europa League. You know, and he did play a key role in the first leg, setting up Porro's equaliser. Do you think he can deliver on a night like tonight, especially without Son? Because I'd argue, you know, he is the player that usually links up with Son down that side. Can he do it tonight without someone like Son down there? Can he be the guy? Because, look, I made the argument, Darmo. I've been waiting for the last 2 years for this guy to step up and be that guy. Tonight's tonight. Tonight's for him to step up and prove why we bought him. I want him to step up tonight. I want him to prove that. I always wanted him at Tottenham when he was at Leicester. I wanted him over Harvey Barnes. And maybe I was wrong on that. Harvey Barnes having a great season. But Maddison tonight, look at that pass he did for Galatasaray. That pass when we a first goal. That's what he's capable of. That is what he's capable of. Maddison tonight is supposed to be in the leadership group. He needs to lead by example. He needs to lead by be the bigger players. We need Bentancur to step up. We need these players to step up. And Bergville and Archie Gray and Odegaard and Tell. These players have no fear. They're all got big games in them. Tell especially, he's got a big game. He's a big game player. So you want these players to not just be scared, go out there. I'm going to prove to you what we're about. And that's what you want. And that's what you will get from Maddison tonight. I think Maddison will turn up tonight. It's absolutely perfectly put in a plate for James Maddison to prove who he is and what he is. And
you wonder...
Dave, I'm sorry. I wasn't,
you wonder with Dino Topmuller, Dave, right? You brought this up, before. He did double up on Sonny. Clearly was like, listen, take Sonny out of the game. In a way, you kind of take Tottenham Hotspur out of the game.
Well, the plan in the first leg was to stop Son cutting it onto his right foot.
So the fact that he's not available for this one, you wonder where Dino then does focus his attention on who to stop. Probably he looks at Maddison, right? But can you really, do that without maybe then giving someone like Matisse Tell more space, giving someone like Johnson or Odegaard more space? You wonder, it's not like going to suit us. I don't think it's an advantage to us, but I wonder if he then has a bit more of a struggle with who is going to be the big game player for Spurs in this one, now that Sonny is out of this competition or is out of this leg. And surely Maddison is the one that you would expect to step up because he has that quality to either create moments for us or, in my opinion, even create a goal for himself. I wish he did that a bit more often, but I know that he can do it. I just wonder, though, the fact that their game plan really was to take Sonny out of this game because they knew that he is the one you just don't give that sort of space to. You don't allow him to be one-on-one with the fullback every time. They made life difficult for him. It then made life difficult for us for periods. But the fact that they don't have him available, maybe that gives someone, a decent chance actually to be a big game player for this one because Dino Topmuller, their coach, might not have an idea or a clue of who will be the best player in this game. Maybe it will be Solanke or Richarlison. Maybe they might actually end up.
But if we don't know, how's he supposed to know, right?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if there's not really an advantage to that, but maybe someone could have an easier time stepping up in this game because of that. Because as the opposition manager, you have no idea who could be the better player in this one. Granted, that is saying someone has to play well and someone has to sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck. But Maddison is the one I would lean towards, but you never know. It could be a Tell, it could be an Odegaard, just because, they'll probably not be given as much attention as maybe someone like Maddison.
Well, let's not forget that Tell should know this atmosphere. He should know this game inside out. He's been to this stadium. He's played against this team, and I don't know whether he'll start. I think it could be Odegaard and Johnson, and I think tonight's a big night for Johnson. I think he could be the one that puts the goal puts the ball in the back of the net and could be the one that hopefully will shine. But I think the ones that have to have that stellar game is those back three, Vicario, Romero, and Van der Ven. They have got to be on absolute top form tonight. There's no mistakes from them. Probably Spence as well, and Udogie. I think Spence will play in front of Porro tonight, but I don't think it's a case of picking one or two players out. I think the whole team has to play tonight. There's no excuses from anybody, and Maddison's got to step up. But I think Kulu's going to have a big game. I think tonight could be Kulu's game. He could be the one that just comes out and absolutely bosses everything.
Do you know what? Look, it'd be interesting to see if he starts. We'll get on to that in a little while. You know, he did play 15 minutes against Wolves, so he has been in training for a little while now. So it'd be interesting to see whether he actually starts or not. If he does, you know, it means I think someone's going to drop out. It'd be interesting to see who. Do you know what? I just have a sneaky suspicion Richie might show up tonight. You know, the old Richarlison. You know, he's been missing for 3 years, but I mean, there's no better time to show up than tonight, is there? But we'll speak about that, you know, a little bit later on. But we've got this from Matthew Glenesk. Great name. Like the yogurt, Glenesk yogurt. Absolutely love it. Says Maddison brought a pillow on plane. Sorry, Dave. Look, don't get me started, I swear. Honestly, I called it when I seen him getting on the plane, AZ Alkmaar with the pillow. Everyone else just gets on normal. He gets on with a pillow, and he was absolutely wank on the night, you know, and that's what I keep saying. You know, I just spot these signs. People think I'm crazy, but, you know, it turns out not so crazy after all. But look, in fairness to James Maddison, he's got 3 away goals in this competition. I think he's got more goals away from home than anybody else. So if anyone is going to show up, I think the indicators maybe say that it is James Maddison. That's if he's geared up to try and save Postecoglou's job, by the way. You know, he keeps taking Maddison off. I think last week was the final straw. Maddison looked absolutely fuming. And I think Postecoglou has a big job getting him round and back on side for today's game. And for the love of God, Almighty Christ, please do not take this guy off if we are chasing the game tonight. We spent money for this guy to be that guy that comes in, you know, finds that final pass or pulls a rabbit out of the hat, you know, to pick the lock, so to speak. We brought him for that reason, but we keep taking him off and not letting him, you know, have that opportunity to show that he can be that guy, that we can depend on him. Now, look, some would argue he should do it before 80 minutes. I get that. But going into tight games near the end, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be this guy. So for me, I don't want to see him taken off tonight. He deserves a full 90 minutes. And look, I ain't Maddison's biggest fan by a long stretch. Everyone knows that. But at the end of the day, you know, he can do it. It's just, will he do it? And that's where I come around. I think if we want to score goals tonight, he has to be on form. He has to be. He's our chief creator from there.
Sorry, no, Jack, we need no. I'll just add to it. We need a maverick in midfield. Maddison is most likely going to be that guy. I would point out before I've made this comparison. I don't know. I don't think he's everybody's favorite because he is a bit of a, you know, he's a bit of a shithouse. But Bruno Fernandes, you know, like that guy, in my opinion, just puts the team on his back on multiple occasions. Steps up with a big goal, plays the perfect pass that leads to the goal. It's just that sort of guy that when you need someone to take their moment or when you need someone to show that extra bit of quality, he seems to provide it for Manchester United. Whereas I'd say Maddison on occasion does it, but maybe not as often as we would like, especially with how much this team has struggled this season. So it's up to him to be that sort of player tonight. When there is a chance, when there is a breakaway, he needs to play the right pass and he needs to have it be well weighted, or he does get maybe a slight opening to have a crack at goal, needs to pull off a worldie, needs to pull off a great finish. And that's why you're paid the big bucks. And it's also why you're wearing the number 10 on the back of your shirt as well. And he needs to show that tonight for sure, Dave.
And look, if he does step up tonight, he can go to all the dart events he wants between now and the end of the season.
He can have as many pillows on the plane as he wants.
Many pillows. You know, I'll even supply him with more. But look, I'd also argue it's probably an opportunity for the likes of someone like Matisse Tell, Udebur, even Mikey Moore, if they get their opportunity tonight. You know, at the end of the day, Son has been that guy in years gone by. We need a guy that's going to do it now moving forward. And I think there's a real opportunity for someone like Wilson Odobert, who scored 2 against AZ Alkmaar to get us through to this point. Let's not forget that. Someone like Matisse Tell, who, look, hasn't lit it up by any stretch of the imagination. But if you want recency bias, 2 goals in his last 3 games, maybe a little bit of confidence developing there. There's a real opportunity for one of these guys to take that torch and keep it burning and move forward with it. So let's see if some of them take it on. But big up, Matthew. Look, James Maddison, step up tonight and all is forgiven, my man. All is forgiven. K32 says, come on, the mighty Spurs. We can do this. Look,
thanks,
we
Kieran.
all hope. We all believe, my man. We all have hope. Big up, Kieran. Look, let's wait and see. Look, honestly, I've been nervous all day. Just nervous excitement feeling. You ever get that? It's like, you know, when you meet a girl for the first time in your life or whatever, you know, that nervous excitement feeling. It's good. Big up, K32. Look, hopefully we can get the job done today. It's a massive, massive day for us. Big up, my man. And I know you're absolutely pumped. How you watching the game tonight? Please put in the chat. Let me know. Levy Towers also says, guys, we have been waiting for these players to step up all season. What makes you thinking they would turn up tonight under this manager? No chance they would shit the bed in that atmosphere. Look, first of all, I fully understand what you're saying, and I think, you know, you're absolutely correct. I'm not saying they will. I'm hoping. Look, everyone else can speak for themselves on this panel. I'm speaking for myself here, and I represent myself to a certain degree. You know, Jack represents himself as well. So, look, at the end of the day, for me, I have no hope. I've made it no secret. I don't back that forward line. I think it's not good enough whatsoever. I think it needs tearing apart again and a major reinvestment, major surgery yet again. At the end of the day, this is all hope. I'm just hoping. I do think Maddison has that ability. He has shown it in years gone by, maybe at Leicester and that, but he has it in him. Can we just dig it out, you know, tonight? At the end of the day, European Cup quarterfinal, Levy Towers, I would like to think is self-motivating for some of these guys, and that maybe they can up their game a little bit to what we see in the league. I do think when you look at the Premier League, it's clear them fuckers are on the beach, right? They're on Copacabana Beach, you know, drinking coconut water. That's what they're doing, you know what I mean? In white sands and blue seas. That's where they are in the Premier League. But you'd like to think a European Cup quarterfinal, it's sort of self-motivating. So that's what I'm clinging on to. And I've made no secret about this all week. It's out of hope rather than what all the stats are telling me. I'm not ignoring them. I fully take them on board, but it is out of hope, Jack.
I think Dave and I are wired a similar way, where I think we probably do share a lot of those opinions in our head, Levy Towers, that you do. Like, you know, have they really stepped up when we've asked them to this season? Plenty of times not. You know, also when it comes to away atmospheres, there have been a history of Spurs, you know, cracking under pressure under away atmospheres. I mean, like we said before, Dave and I have referenced this plenty of times. Ben Davis, you know, complained about the Vitesse crowd, you know, years ago. I mean, this is just a squad and a team that has always, for some reason, struggled with that. At the same time, this is where I mean Dave and I are wired this way, where I do think we try to come up with some reasons, despite maybe reservations, despite maybe some sort of doubts. We try to think of reasons of maybe they can defy all odds. Maybe they can step up this time around. Maybe they can sort of, you know, go against our expectations. But Levy Towers, by no means are we saying that, you know, it's a given, blah, 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 you know, type of thing. We just try to sort of, you know, think of reasons that, you know, maybe they will, you know, sort of defy the expectations, or maybe they will defy what maybe plenty of us are feeling ahead of this game. But 100%, man, I do see where you're coming from.
And look, realistically, all week I've been thinking, I think we're going to shit the bed tonight. But at the end of the day, it's game day. And I always made no secret about this. The day of the game, the feeling, the passion, the excitement sort of takes over. At the end of the day, I'm a loser. This is all I've got in my life, man. You know, so at the end of the day, I just choose to go into it hoping for the best and thinking we can do the best. And then I'll just deal with everything else after the fallout. Look, I think we'll probably have to wake up tomorrow and do Ange Postecoglou has been sacked. I really don't want to. I want to go as far in this competition. I want to win it. But at the end of the day, I'm not naive. I'm just choose to believe, my man. Sorry, Sarah, I think you wanted to come in there.
No, I was just going to respond to this because obviously I'm very much the other way. And I don't know who this is. I get where he's coming from. And I get why. Pardon?
He's in Levy Towers. That's who he is.
Well, whatever. But I get the reasoning behind this. And look, tonight is not about agendas. Tonight, you know, you've got an agenda. You don't like Levy. You don't like Ange. You don't like the team. You don't like us winning. Whatever the reasons are, tonight is not about that. Tonight is about those players coming out and doing the job for once. It's about the players tonight. It's about the team. It's about the club. It's about the badge. It's about the honour. It's about loving your team. It's about getting behind your team. It's not about, I hope we lose because Angel gets sacked, or I hope we go out, because then we can carry on moaning about the team. Tonight is about getting behind the team. Don't even worry about whether Ange has got a job at the end of the season, because he probably hasn't. You're probably going to get your own way and lose another manager, and maybe Levy will sell the club and we'll get a decent owner in. But that's not about tonight. Tonight is about one thing: going out, supporting the club, and then at the end of the game, moan, shout, cheer, whatever. But at this particular moment, it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's about supporting the club. Full stop.
It's about 120 minutes tonight getting behind this team, as Soren says. We can all agree and disagree about the players, the formation, whatever players up front. We can have discussions on that all day long. But tonight is about winning in a European tie, getting to a semi-final, getting closer to a final. If we get to semi-final, we have one hell of a chance. I never get this team's name right. It's Voodoo or Bodo or Doodoo or whatever if I can call them. They're turning up against Lazio. So we will probably beat them. It's about getting to that final. There's a Champions League at the end of this. That's the carrot we're looking at. Get into the Champions League. Then you keep your best players. You contract better players. And then you've got new owners, or Ange stays, or money comes in, you improve. You move on. But don't care about tonight. Tonight's about backing the team, backing the players. This is a European night. Let's all be as one. We need to be as one. Fans, team, players, everyone has to unite behind the one banner, because there's no point in arguing.
What do all these fans that are after everything to be gone? What is the one thing we always say about Tottenham? We're a cup team. What's tonight? Yeah. It's a cup. Full stop. We're winning. We're going to Bilbao. Just believe.
To be fair,
we're all going there. Me and Soren and Dave and Jack, we'll get into Bilbao. We'll get my tickets.
I've already booked
the hotel. Watching Bordeaux Glint versus United yet. You don't know, guys. Don't get carried away. But look, what I will say to Levy Towers, in fairness, he's not saying that he's not getting behind the team. He's just asking maybe where our confidence is coming from, considering what we've seen this season, which I think, look, is a fair, question to ask. Big up, Levy Towers. And then we've got Daniel Larson says, big up, peeps. Just have a feeling that if we win this game, we win the cup. Don't know why. It's a huge game. Come on, you Spurs. Look, I'm going to take it every game as it comes. I'm not going to get too carried away. Look, I'd love to. I just think they opened the Bilbao route from Rosslare straight into the Basque region of Spain. I thought right at the start of the season, that's just a sign. We're still in it despite what's gone on, and I'm hoping that sign continues to shine bright and get me through, Daniel. Look, we win tonight. It's a possibility. You can't write us off, right? You can't. We're in the semis. We have as good a chance as anybody. But look, let's wait and see what happens, Big Dan. Good to see you, my man. Really appreciate the support. Guys, I want to say to everybody at home, there's nearly 600 people tuning in live right now. All you loyal, well, I hope you're all Spurs fans. Hopefully there's no rival fans sitting here laughing at us. But guys, if you could, smash that like button. It really helps us out here. It's free for you to do. It's that thumbs up button. There's like 600 people tuning in, only 60 likes. I mean, I failed maths in school, but I don't need to be a genius or get an A to tell me that they don't add up. So guys, please, if you can, smash that like button. Now, I'm going to be a bit of a slight hypocrite here, but I'll be honest, it has been frustrating that ahead of our biggest game this season, a European quarterfinal, the focus isn't on how Spurs can win, what the game plan should be or who starts. Instead, all the talk has been about Ange Postecoglou's future and who Tottenham's next manager will be. And I have to say that has really, really wound me up. I don't think that would happen to any other English club that are in Europe. I think it only happens to Tottenham. Yeah. It really has wound me up. However, I would also make the argument it's probably possible to avoid, considering the pressure that's on him tonight, that he has to. So with reports basically out there suggesting Levy could sack Ange if we go out tonight. So here's the big question. If Spurs don't make it through tonight, guys, should Ange Postecoglou be sacked? We'll go around the panel, and we'll get people's answers. And I'd be interested to know, even in the chat at home, is there anybody or on the panel, that still believe Ange is the right man to lead Tottenham forward, regardless of what happens in Frankfurt tonight? So please get your comments in, guys. We'll start with you, Jacko.
I'll try to be quick on this. I think he should. I think he's made an alien to himself and the fan base. I think he's made an enemy out of himself to the fan base. I think he's made an enemy out of himself to some of these players, like, for example, James Maddison to a degree. And, just when you look at even the most cynical of Spurs fans, probably predictions ahead of this season, plenty of people were saying, oh, we could finish 10th, 11th. I don't think anybody had us finishing this low down in the Premier League table and having this many defeats in a season. I think Ange has had plenty of opportunities to try to adapt. I don't think he has. I think he's had plenty of opportunities to see if he can show some in-game management. I think he rarely does. So, to be honest, I think Ange Postecoglou, it's all riding on him to try to win this competition. If he does, I think he should stay in the job personally. I'm in that camp where I think if he does win this competition, he should stick in the job. But if he doesn't, I think this would be the most dramatic of failures of the season, even more than what people would have probably predicted, even if they weren't Ange fans to begin with. So yeah, Dave, I think he will go.
Sorry. Look, I think, from what I read around the place, the chat here, Jack's opinion, my opinion, it's sort of like, look, we're out tonight, there's no point in continuing this on between now and the end of the season. It doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. But you are a bit more optimistic maybe than myself and Jack, I would maybe point out. So, would you make the case that, Ange should be kept on after the Frankfurt game? Is there any reasons you see why, or do you sort of agree if we are out tonight, he has to go?
Right. Ange is not getting sacked because we ain't going out tonight. Full stop. Move on. Look, let's be diplomatic on this. If we lose tonight, he's got to go. That's even me saying that. So if we lose tonight, I think he's got to go.
What would be
I didn't expect that, Soren. I actually didn't expect you to say that.
But we're not losing tonight. That's the whole point. So I can say it. Look, even I am not going to say I want him gone. At the moment, he's the manager of the club that I support, and I don't care who the manager is. I will support that manager until the day he's gone. Now, if we lose tonight, on the basis of this season and the latter parts of last season, can't see how he can't go. That's the problem. I'm not saying I want him to go or I want him to stay, but I just don't see us losing tonight, so I don't think it's a conversation. Full stop.
Fair. Dermo, where do you sit?
Look, if he loses tonight, he needs to go tonight. I think there's no point keeping him on. And from what I'm hearing, that's what probably will happen. He will go tonight. If he wins, then he stays on because you can't sack him after winning the game tonight. Look, I wanted Ange to do so well. I knew what he was. I knew when we got him from Celtic, what he was like, and we have failed him. We have failed him as a club. We failed him as a manager. We didn't supply him with the right players in transfer windows. We haven't backed him. And when he wanted back and when he needed support him, we haven't done it as a club. So we have failed him like we failed every other manager. But if he hasn't helped himself, Jack is right. Jack, when he says he's alienated himself to the fans, he has. But if he does win the Europa League, I'm in Jack's camp. I think he has to stay. You can't sack a manager after winning a major trophy. I do agree with that. But if he loses tonight, then he's got to go. He's got to go tonight. Either fall on his sword and resign or sack him. And then go out and put Ryan Mason. Nobody wants Ryan Mason in this manager, by the way. But if it means the end of the season with that, then yeah, I'm in that camp, Dave.
Look, I just think, and I've been saying this all the way since back January, I think he will last as long as this Europa League sort of run has lasted. Look, at the end of the day, I make no bones about it. I want to win tonight. I'm not one of those that maybe would say, oh, hopefully we lose and Ange is gone. I want to win tonight. At the end of the day, I'd rather him leave the Europa League in my hands before he goes than not, to be quite honest with you. But look, the reality is, he's calling out moles in the club. The physio department is under scrutiny. The players are under a lot of pressure. He's alienated himself from the fan base, from the media. I don't think, the two people that usually give you a lot of backing and keep you in a job a lot longer, the media and the fans, he's isolated to a large degree. And it's just telltale signs combined with the 21 defeats this season that, look, it's not getting any better. It's getting worse, and I fail to see how this is going to get back on track. So look, he has to go if we go out tonight, in my opinion. There's no point of even keeping him in for the last 4 or 5 games. You may as well bring in an interim for the last 4 or 5 games in the Premier League. But sorry, look, I'm going to read out a couple of comments to you, or sorry, not sorry, Donovan. I'm going to read out a couple of comments to you before. Huh?
can I just quickly say something on this topic of whether he wins or loses tonight? Let's just go back a little bit. Ange has always won a trophy in his second year.
Fair look, and he's still on course for it. But what I will say is, that will be used as a tool to beat him with on his way out if he doesn't win it this year. Look, I actually think personally, I get, you know, a lot of hatred towards Ange Postecoglou, but it was a quote taken out of context. You know, it is, you know, he was just stating facts. He has done it in his second year everywhere else he's been. He never guaranteed he was going to do it at Tottenham, just to be fair to the guy. But look, before we get Donovan in on his answer, you know, I just want to put a couple of comments to him, because I'll be honest, they're probably the only two I could find in the chat where people are saying keep Ange in. But Limpy Down Under says not only is Ange the best manager right now for Spurs, he failed the fan test lately, but with this season, he has only gotten you objectively. He deserves a chance to use the squad he is building. And then we've also got this from Thunderous One, says, I would give him one more season after all. What difference would it make? Spurs are a meme given the errors since Pochettino. Who will come in and what would they do under Levy? Levy's the issue. Look, I sort of do agree with you on that, you know, I don't think this club sets managers up for success. I think they make it almost to the fact that the managers are already coming in begging for certain things. It's almost to a degree where they're actually setting them up from failure from the beginning. There's a lot inside the club that does not make this manager's job easy. I've highlighted the recruitment. I don't know how many times. I think that's piss poor and fails your manager before you even go into a season to a large degree. But the reality is, you can't keep a guy, you know, just on that basis. He's got 21 defeats to his name. You know, the football has been dreadful a lot of times this year, to be quite honest. I think a lot of Spurs fans find it actually boring, to be quite frank. And at the end of the day, you know, regardless whether rolling the dice, you know, you can't keep rolling the dice all the time. You know, that's another part of why we are where we are in the league. You know, it's not just down to one factor, but the reality is, we've been here so many times before. We know it's all the signals are coming to an end. You can't just keep a guy in the job on that basis. You know, unfortunately, you do have to roll the dice. But Donovan, where are you on this one? You know, with Ange, you know, do you think, are you one that maybe thinks he should be given more of a chance going forward? Or do you think he has to go tonight if we're out?
It's interesting hearing all your opinions and all the comments, and like it's very stark different opinions. There's not like any middle ground. It's either you're in or you're out at this point. Fair enough. I'm in the camp where I believe that patience should be rewarded, and if he does win tonight, then obviously that's kind of like prolonged and inevitable. He needs to be given up until the World Cup, in my opinion, just as a club. There's not going to be anything long-term sustainable, that success that's going to be available to the end of the World Cup anyway. And if we play our cards right, we could have a nice Pochettino return well at the end of the World Cup as well. So, you know, we don't want to throw the towel in too early. You know, it's like a game of cat and mouse. It's a game of poker. It's a game of, you know, those people who like the Formula One, you know, you don't want to take that inside layup too early, man. You want to time your pass. You want to time everything right. And just like passing the manager and passing the baton, you gotta time the exit right. And I wanted him to work out, much like Sturmo said. We had a really good chance at the Carabao Cup. I don't care what you said. You don't rest your players. You need to go at it. Whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. But we still have a big chance here. So tonight's going to be telling. No pun intended. And we're going to see what happens. But I'm in the camp where Ange should stay until the end of the World Cup, and then we kind of assess our options.
Interesting. World Cup and then get Poch in, I think, is what you're aiming for, right? You know, look,
well,
you know, I have heard
like Nagelsmann, like Nagelsmann too, will be available after the World Cup too. And I'm like, that's like, if we don't get Poch, I think we got to throw all our eggs in the Nagelsmann basket. Because Nagelsmann could be like Guardiola for like a decade, you know. And so he's like, we get him the resources, we get him like a Saudi-backed ownership group where we can just get him players. Like, you got to also look at Ange Postecoglou's project. Like, we failed him. We did fail him. Like, Ange Postecoglou's project, much like Nuno Espirito's project, failed because Nuno's going to come in, you're supposed to play a back three with attacking wing backs and then like the front three, but he didn't have enough balls, whatever you want to call it, to come in and start moving things around to big players like Harry Kane and Son and the likes of these big players that still have these contracts. Right? And then Postecoglou, his team is supposed to have a Gallagher in it, right? His team is supposed to have these other players that Levy was like, really, do we really need to spend 80 million for our biggest rivals? We're gonna have to overpay 120 million to our rivals here. How about this guy from Sweden? And thank God Bergvall worked out. But it should have had a Gallagher in there. It should have had I don't know what our backline looks like. Our backline's pretty good. Our backline's really good. On our
They should have
state.
gotten a left back. Yeah, it's a good point that you're making. Like,
these players that like who knows behind the scenes what fallen short. But like we all know we need a quality leadership, and that's a leader right there, right? So, long story short, maybe it's 60-40. Postecoglou does make the decisions. He does make questionable decisions. I think he does himself no favors in the media. I think he does himself no favors in how he just. When you play that character of the villain, you have to play it. You can't just be like flip flop about it and like, oh, I'm charismatic 1 minute, next minute I'm just like, oh, wrong. Like you have to like just either be like Mourinho, bad boy, or like it's his first time in English media, so he's learning. But yeah, I really want him to win, and I want Nagelsmann or Poch. So yeah.
So I don't think Poch is coming back. I'm sorry, and I wouldn't wait to the World. I slightly disagree with you waiting to the World Cup. I don't think. I mean, there's plenty of good managers out there. Xavi's free at the moment. You got a few. You got Thiago, the ex-Juventus manager. He's free at the moment. The Brazilian manager, the player, ex-Juventus manager, Thiago something, whatever his name is. He's free at the moment. There's a lot of good managers out there. So I disagree waiting to the World Cup. Poch will not come back. Poch is not coming back. I think he may do, but I can't see it. But there is a lot of other good managers out there. And if you did
10 years, it's like 10 years, it's like a decade later, and the man is still pining for the club. He's definitely coming back, dude. Like, there's no way at some form of capability, there's going to be a youth coach, there's going to be a scout who's going to come back and get paid to stand and sign books. Like, at some point, Pochettino is going to come back to Tottenham Hotspur. Like, he might not stand on the touchline, but at some capacity, he'll be on the wage back. Maybe he'll be like what Michael Dawson does, or like a Lovely King scenario. But the love for that man and the man and vice versa. You just owe certain things to people in life, and the same thing with these great historic managers that Tottenham Hotspur have had over the past years too, right? Like we don't even have statues for anyone. So yeah, I disagree with you on that, but we're not arguing about Poch. We're arguing we're going to win.
We're not going to talk about Poch.
I don't want to get into a debate about potential replacements because at the end of the day, we're going to have plenty of time for that. I just wanted to see where everyone was in general. Is everyone sort of on the same line of thinking, or are you? And by looks of it, by the chat and all, I do think a lot of Spurs fans have lost their patience. That they do want this guy gone. And look, I'll be honest, I'm not yet to be enamored by some of the names that have been put forward. I'm still waiting for that one name to say, do you know what? I'll give that a chance. The rest of them, I think it's just as big as much of a gamble as Postecoglou has been to a certain degree. But look, we are going to move on. We've got Slurwage.
Sorry, go on. Point something quickly. A lot of people, and I've seen it a lot in the chat and that, Levy's not the problem with Poch. Levy wanted Poch back. It is Donna Cullen and the American bloke who do not want Poch back at the club. So everyone that thinks Levy won't bring him back, Levy would have Poch back.
All right, we'll move on from the Poch thing. We can talk about that any other time.
We can speak about that any other day. Yeah. But look, we've got Slurwage says na. Big up IrishHotspur, come on, you Spurs. Don't know whether you're not a Tottenham fan or you are and you're doing the goodbye one, that you think we're gonna. I'm not quite so sure, but if you are a Spurs fan, I do apologize. And big up, my man. I really appreciate the support. Big up yourself, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well. Look, I don't want it to be the end tonight. Like I said, I've made it very, very clear. I want to try and keep progressing as we can. I want to try and win this Europa League, my man. Big up. We've got Wayne Bonner. Come on, you Spurs. Tottenham till I die. The trophy comes home. Yid Army. Big up, my man. Look, I really hope so. Look, I want to win. I do want to win. Levy Tower says I am supporting the club, but being realistic, sorry.
No, look, it's like I said, I get where they're coming from. And I understand that a lot of people haven't got the faith in it, but it's like I say, tonight is not about agendas. It's not about Levy in, Levy out. It's not about Ange in, Ange out. Tonight, for me, in my opinion, is only about Tottenham winning the game. Full stop. Don't need the politics behind it all. Don't need anything else. It's just about supporting the club tonight. I don't need to hear all the politics and negativity. That can come after the game. It might very well come after the game. Before the game kicks off, we are still in the quarterfinals with every chance of going to the semi-finals. Let's just move on. Let's just go there.
No, look,
to be fair to Levy Towers, I don't think he brought up Daniel Levy or anything. He was just saying, like, look at the evidence from the season. He was saying, like, these guys haven't turned up in any of the big games this season.
Look at his little
and they've
badge,
shit the bed in away atmospheres. So that's a fair point to make.
If you look at the badge and you look at what he's saying, you know where he's coming from. I'm not having to go at him.
But use the words that he actually said. Use the words that he actually said.
Then it's a shit show and we haven't got a chance of going through tonight, right? So he doesn't believe we're going to go through tonight. So I'm arguing against that thing. Okay. If he thinks we're going to go out, that's fine. That's his opinion.
Go on, Jack.
But for me, tonight is not the tonight to argue that we don't want to win or we're going to go out just so Ange can lose his job. We've got to believe in the club.
I do understand what you're trying to convey. Look, that everything that's happened this season, leave at the door. When that whistle goes, get behind the boys. And look, in general, I do think that will happen, or I'd hope to think that will happen. But look, big up Levy Towers. You're entitled to your opinion at the end of the day. You're more than entitled to your opinion. And someone would agree with that. Exactly, my man. And he also says, if we had Harry Redknapp in charge tonight, I would 100% agree that we would win tonight and win the trophy, but not under Ange, under his tactics. Just my opinion, guys. No, look, like I said, you're entitled to your opinion. And look, most people don't believe in Ange tonight, that he's going to be the guy to sort of navigate our way through it. I think most people sort of are along your lines, Levy Towers, on that one. And look, it's hard to argue against it, right? Many have argued he's been tactically found out this year, and you look at the amount of defeats. I mean, I think you can make that argument. You're absolutely spot on. Like I said, I just sit here and I hope and I believe. Look, a one-off game, anything can happen. We did dominate them in terms of possession last week. Could we do the same again this week? Big ask. It's a little bit different away from home. But look, there's hope. We're still in it, and that's what I remain hopeful. But look, I understand. I understand your opinion on that. Look, a lot of people have been questioning Ange Postecoglou tactics. What I will say is I think Pedro Porro starts are right back tonight. I think he's making a rod off his own back, especially in terms of defensively. I think Jed Spence has to start there tonight. I think him and a doggy either side are defensively solid. I think if he starts Pedro Porro and starts getting him to vacate or leaving him isolated out there, it's going to spell trouble tonight like it did earlier on last week. So I do understand what you're saying to a large degree, Levy Towers. Like I said, I just hope him, my man. But big up, brother. Really appreciate support. Sonam says, we as a fan base deserve something to be happy about. I hope this is it. Come on, you Spurs. Love you guys. You make those losses a little bearable. And can someone pass it down to Ange to please lay low on his interviews? First of all, Sonam, really appreciate the support and the love, my man. Look, honestly, I hate doing this when we're losing, my man. I really do. I'd much prefer to be able to sit here and enjoy it, laugh, banter, and just enjoy watching good football, winning games, praising people. That's ultimately what I want to be here for. I'm jealous of everyone that got that run under Pochettino, amazing times. I've only known misery since starting doing this, to be quite frank. And I do want them times to change. And at the end of the day, we as Spurs fans, especially since, under Levy's tenureship, we've been through an awful lot of disappointment. A hell of a lot of disappointment. We lose more than what we win. And we're not happy about it. And at the end of the day, I do think if we can win a trophy, I think it calms everybody down a little bit inside and outside the club, the fan base as well. And I do think more rational, stuff starts coming to the fore once we get that, sort of curse off our back. But right now, everyone's just angry because the amount we lose. So we really could do with winning this trophy and just sort of calming everything down a little bit. Jack, do you want to say anything to Son Amir?
I agree. I've said before about Ange in the interviews, plenty of times. I just think, he makes an absolute meal out of it when he really doesn't need to, or he opens cans of worms on himself when he doesn't need to. I mean, you even brought up, Dave, like the fact that even though he factually stated he always wins things in his second season, probably being a Tottenham Hotspur manager, maybe he could have realized that would be turned into a meme, probably later on, down the road, or even just recently, like in his recent interview, he brought up like, oh, I've never get affected by the criticism, or what people think of me. And it's like, you obviously do. Like, many times you've chirped back at journalists, and many times you've chirped back at fans, when they have criticized you. So plenty of times I think he's contradicted himself, and plenty of times I think he's opened huge cans of worms on himself. So I would agree with that last part. Like, I get, it seems like it's every week now that, it's a new press conference and it's a new interview where another soundbite, seems to come out of it. So I agree with Sonam there. Appreciate the support.
And I'll be honest, that is one area I have been slightly disappointed with Ange Postecoglou. I thought a guy like him who, look, before Tottenham, he knew how to win, would maybe look at the media and look to actually get it on his side. I understand why, because, wherever he walks to, especially since he's come to the Scottish League and the Premier League, a lot of the media, he wasn't expecting the backlash or maybe the skepticism he was getting walking into these jobs. But I do think maybe he should have maybe been the bigger person and sort of, give them a pass on it, and they sort of proved them wrong, but also charmed them to a little degree. I think he's really let himself down in the media, because look, no matter what, any press conference he does, any post-match interview, everyone's pulling out his words all the time. It's just not good. But big up, son. I really appreciate the support. Big up Ben Francis as well. Really appreciate the support, my man. I'm not sure if there's a comment there. I'm going to have a look here.
Yeah, let me look for you, Dave.
But big up, Ben. I'll come back to that, my man. Really appreciate the support. Just quickly, though, I want to say big up to Matty Bynum as well. Great to see you. And then, this is one thing that I find mad about all this. You've got one comment from Kyle here, and I'm not digging you guys out. I'm just showing, how people view it even. He goes, lads, listen to yourselves. Honestly, we don't have a prayer winning tonight. The man is useless. Only got for Scotland and Japan. It's a joke. And then you've got Gok Buru Kurt says, watching you guys and reading the comments is like watching and reading a bunch of old women and men complaining about everything. So you've got one saying they're too positive and one saying too negative. I mean, absolutely madness. I mean, how can you even win? But look, we've got this from Blaine Devlin. Big up Spurs, Super Spurs TV. Says, big up, lads. Off work till the 28th now. Should be feeling up for tonight, but honestly, I just feel empty. Of course, I want the win tonight, but it feels like a wet fart building up to the game. Anyway, cheers, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Look, I get why people feel empty heading into this game. I get why, people, some are maybe failing to gather some optimism heading into this game. I get it. Look, all the stats heading into it, the away form, the lack of big game player, the lack of leadership. The fact that we've been beaten up in Europe before away from home. I get it. I absolutely get it. But at the end of the day, what I would say to you, Blaine, is, chances are, if you're a betting man, we're not going to have European football next season. It could be the last game for a number of years in European football. We just don't know. So what I would say to anybody that is maybe feeling like that, try and enjoy it tonight. Realistically, we don't know when the next European game is going to be here. We just don't, especially with how quickly we're sliding down the table and stuff like that. So try and enjoy it tonight. That's what I would say on that one, Blaine. Big yourself up, my man. And then we've also got Ryan Trestane says, let's get rid of Ange and then let's get rid of Levy because I can't stand either of them. Hope we get rid of Ange and have a good Friday. And Dermo, how's World War II going on, lol? Oh, look, he was mentioning more earlier on and everything else, Rhino. He absolutely lives in it, my man. He loves it, Rhino. But look, like I said, I want to try and win this. We can decide Andrew's future after we win the final. It doesn't have to be, let's go out tonight so we can get him gone. At the end of the day, Tottenham's success means more to me than any other manager. The manager isn't bigger than this football club. This football club is bigger than anybody, and we should be wanting this football club to win so we stop getting bantered. And then we can decide Andrew's future come the final if we get there right now. But big up, my man. Really appreciate the support. We've also got Tottenham Hotspur in the house. Good to see you as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. And then Q7 says, evening, you legends. Not sure about that. That's a bit strong, but I'll take it, my man. Says, I'm just hoping for a good, hungry performance tonight. I'll worry about Ange after. The players should be doing this for themselves and the fans. Do I have faith? No, Lord, but we can pray. Exactly, my man. That's sort of where I'm at. What I will say is, Van de Ven did come out and say that the players want to win this for Ange Postecoglou. And I've made a point of saying this. Kulusevski's come out and said, before that they like the way of playing. They're not looking for a way out. They like Ange Postecoglou. James Maddison has said it. Jed Spence has said it. This seems to be a common thing coming out from the players. And I get the argument that, they have to say it to a certain degree. No, they don't. They can just say nothing. That says absolutely everything without them actually badmouthing someone. They don't have to go to the lengths that they are. So by all means, it does seem like inside the camp, there's a motivation to win tonight. What I would say is, hopefully we fucking see that, because what we've seen against Wolves was certainly not a hunger or a desire to win a game.
I mean, 100%, Dave. And I agree with Q7's point about, the players should be doing it for themselves. Like, as much as I have players that I really love in this team, guys who I really back and I really rate, I think everyone at some point, in the squad has had a stinker or has had a huge, mistake that's led to us losing a game, or has just had a really, really bad performance at some point or another, whether it's Romero, Vicario, even Mickey Van de Ven, who's everyone's favorite, has had some bad moments this year. Destiny Udogie, Lucas Bergvall, even, as much as that guy is absolutely adored by the fan base, has contributed to some massive mistakes this season. So everybody should, in a way, in that squad, look at this as an opportunity to save themselves from, in my opinion, further criticism and further scrutiny, and also just for their own kind of pride and then their own belief in themselves, because everyone has had a stinker. It's almost like it's a kind of an equal way to look at it. I think you can't really say, oh, this guy, is exempt, from the criticism, or this guy, has maybe been better than the rest. I'd say everyone has had shockers this year. So they should all look at it as an opportunity for themselves as well, to sort of save face and save this season for their own sake, really. And of course, for us as fans, for what we've had to put up with 21 losses inside an entire season. So even as a player, Dave, you yourself, Dave, no one wants to lose 21 times in a season in any sport of any kind. That just sucks. So they should look at it again as an opportunity for themselves to cling on to something for the rest of the season and still have something to look forward to. You do not want to be on the beach this early, into the end of the season. So
you'd like to hope they don't want to be on the beach this early, but some of the Premier League games has probably proven otherwise. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say to Jack there, but how Spursy is it going to be? Such a shit season, and we go and win the cup.
100%, man. I'm all for it.
It's just Tottenham through and through that. But I just want to quickly come back to a comment that Leighton made earlier, and he was saying I was like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. Now, anybody who's seen Dorothy tap her red shoes and says there's no place like home, and she arrives home, well, just put it this way, Leighton. Tap those red shoes. There's no place like Bilbao. There's no place like Bilbao. We're going, baby.
It's just tonight. So just tonight, we've got this. I don't know what it is. There's something in the air. There's something about tonight that we're all excited. We've had a shit show of a season, but it's a European night. Dave's right. We might not have another European night for a while yet. And that's right to say. So we've got to take tonight and take it forward. Let's grab it with both hands and go for it. Let's go for it.
Demo, if one of the players for Tottenham comes out in a pair of red boots and scores, it's just going to be pulled back to that comment, and it's like, they're all believing in it.
Guys, I look, like I said, we don't know when Europe's going to come back again, so I'm going to choose to put my feet up, smoke a cigar, and enjoy fucking life for what it is. But guys, before we do go in and speak about, sort of team selection and that tonight, I do want to take a brief moment, though, to plug the best NordVPN in the world, which hopefully, if we bring in you the best, it transcends, and that means Spurs can produce the best tonight. But if there is anybody that is having trouble watching tonight's game, well, guys, we've brought you the solution. We've brought you the answer. Like we like to say, look, we can sit here and complain, but we also like to throw solutions out there. And your solution is NordVPN, especially on them 3 p.m. blackouts on the weekend as well. Or now that, we're further down the table, it means our TV schedule next season even is going to be reduced yet again. So you're going to find it harder and harder to watch Tottenham. But basically, NordVPN are going to help you with this next season. Do not forget it. And why we've got a deal now, I think you should absolutely hop on it. For any of them people out there that are not jazzed up with technology like me, basically what a VPN does, it allows you to bounce your location over to another part of the world. And it means then you're in that location and you can watch, that live sporting event, concerts, even if you're traveling on holiday, you get the dreaded, oh, sorry, this program isn't available in this area. Well, that doesn't matter because NordVPN eradicates that. And hey, presto, you can watch what you want. Not only that, they've taught about the likes of cybersecurity because it helps you shop online as well, helps you get better prices by changing your location, all that sort of stuff. Of course, to come with it, then you need your cybersecurity. And not only do they protect you on and all your details on public Wi-Fi, but they also protect your bank details if you are going to make purchases through NordVPN as well. So it's basically premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee a month. And I think it's an absolute no-brainer because the way the world is going, with all this technology, all that sort of fraud and all that sort of stuff is going to become more and more common. So someone like NordVPN helps you out with that. So guys, if that sounds great to you, please. Oh, actually, lastly, it's great for the family. It's family friendly, which is absolutely brilliant. You can put it onto up to 10 devices as well. So guys, if that sounds appealing to you, if that sounds good to you, because you can shop around, you can get cheaper subscriptions elsewhere in different locations, hop on over to nordvpn.com. Type in the code FLATCAP. It gives you a 30-day money-back guarantee if interested, and get the 2-year plan. If not, there are other plans available there for you to be able to go and try. So thank you, NordVPN. Hopefully you can bounce us all the way into Germany and cheer them boys on for victory tonight. Thank you very much for the sponsorship. But look, let's keep it moving, guys. I mean, I do want to sort of get in and talk about the fullback situation tonight, because as people have heard me say, I think if we play Pedro Porro tonight, I think it opens up a massive can of worms for us, and I think ultimately could end up costing us the game. I know he scored last week, but that goal was his fault. He allowed Ekitike on the inside of him, far too easy to unleash that shot. So I want to know of people, and we'll start again with you, Jacko, and work our way around. Well, actually, maybe we won't work our way around. Maybe we'll tailor some of the questions and switch them up as we go forward. But who do you want to see at fullback tonight? What's our best pairing to get the job done tonight?
I lean defensive, as always, and I would go for Jed Spence on the right. I understand he's played better on the left, but I do think he is a better defender than Pedro Porro, and I think we need to survive that first 20 to 30 minutes. I understand some people might feel differently about that, but for me, I think it's about making sure we don't concede first and trying to weather the storm that Frankfurt will put on us in those first 20 to 30 minutes. So I'd go with the more solid defenders of Destiny Udogie and Jed Spence. I understand that each of them have all had bad moments this season, but I've agreed with Dave on this. Like, Pedro Porro is targeted a lot in games. It seems like most teams, when they know he's playing, they look to ping balls in behind. They look to try to sort of go for those big switches of play over to his side. They double up on him, and he really does struggle with it. I think at one point last season, he actually was all right defensively, Pedro Porro, but it seems like in recent games, he's just not very confident and stepping out, trying to close down his man, and then also try to even put in a challenge. You know, the goal that we did concede to Ekitike was to a degree. I understand Maddison lost the ball in midfield, but Pedro Porro could have done a bit better there, in my opinion. And there have been other games where I think he could have done a lot better defensively. I think he's been all right going forward, Pedro, but in this game, I don't think it's about that. I think it's about taking whatever chances do end up coming our way. It's not about being the more attacking team in every sense. I think it's about being more defensively solid. So I'd go for Jed Spence and then Destiny Udogie. And then technically you can use Pedro Porro as an impact sub if need be, you know, someone that could maybe whip some crosses in, someone that could maybe pop up with a goal if you need that, you know, later on in the game. I'd rather start out more defensively solid, but does anyone disagree with me there? I mean, Donovan, you know, we're trying to get you in and out. Donovan, can you hear us? I think you're on mute there, though.
Yeah, so I think we have to start Pedro Porro. It sucks that he's so defensively fragile, but Jed Spence, though, is good enough going forward. So yeah, I do see what Dave is saying. What you're saying, having two athletic fullbacks, he's just so good at delivering the ball. I'm just trying to get him on the field. If Ange is more tactically adept, maybe you could somehow put him into the midfield, but I know he's not going to do that. But having him off the bench late is going to be a great option. And I saw someone saying on, I don't know, if it was We Are Tottenham TV or if it was some other platform, where if this game does go the distance, the bulk of the substitute that does come onto that position might play the majority of the minutes anyway. So you have to take that into consideration as well, too. So it is 1-1 on aggregate. You know, it could go the distance. It probably will go the distance. These teams are matched like tooth and nail. But if you take the Tottenham hat off, like on paper, like we're really well matched up. So yeah, I think you want to keep your kind of your ace up your sleeve too. So maybe Pedro Porro is ace up the sleeve. He does have a crazy right foot, and his prisoner mentality, take no prisoner mentality, gets him in a lot of troubles because his last stitch defending is almost like first season Reguilon-esque, where when that old Ascaleta just did him with a half Cruyff turn and like Reguilon slid like 20 feet, like trying to slide tackle him, right? Like Reggie Porro has that Spanish flair about him where he wants to get in, he wants to get fight, and like defenders can do him so easy because of that, right? So I mean, offenders, like people who just go at you, like who were like an Odebert probably skins them in practice like all the time. Like that's probably what happens behind the scenes. So yeah, I started the conversation really leading to Pedro. But now I see the logic in why we need 2 athletic fullbacks just to shore up the hatches. So yeah, I think Spence should start, yeah.
Dermotron, you wanted to come in as well?
I was sent that. I put it into the chat there. I was sent a rumored starting 11 tonight, and it starts with Porro and Udogie, and that's who I start with as well. Actually, I take Spence off the bench.
Why would you start Porro ahead? What does he bring?
I think Porro brings more with his crossing ability. I think that's something he's rarely good at. And okay, he's made mistakes in the fullback. I will grant you that. But you look at the crosses he puts into the box when we've scored this season. You look at the presence. Him and Kulu do work well together. He does do well down that wing. Defensively, yeah, he's made mistakes, but going forward, he's brilliant, and he whips a ball in as good as anyone. And he's very. I think he gives you that sort of when you got a player can whip a ball in. I think you have to battle in. It puts defenses in 2 minds, and then they make us up and they get in and score. And I think he can, and that's why I start with Porro. I think you start with Udogie as well. I think you start with Porro, Udogie, and the fullbacks. I think that's your stronger. That's your 2 strongest fullbacks, in my opinion. The Spencer's been this season.
Look, it's clear that, this season Postecoglou has fancied Pedro Porro, right? He's been his most selected fullback. He's played nearly every game. But I'd argue, Jed Spencer's put in a couple of crosses this season. He can also cross a ball. And I'd argue, I don't think we should be picking, a right back just because he can cross. I mean, I'm not being funny, but that's what the right winger should be doing. You need to be picking a right back because he can do both sides of the game. And that's where I just think Jed Spence has the upper hand. I think he can do both sides of the game. Is he as good as crossing the ball as Pedro Porro? I have maybe the range Pedro Porro does. No, I don't think he does. But I don't think it's that much of a drop-off, personally. But look, I think you're right, Dermot. I do think it probably will be Porro and Udogie. I think it will be the same backline in general that we've seen from that first leg. Because I do want to get in and talk about the midfield now as well. But we'll take this from Jason Bell. He's gifted out 5 Irish Hotspur memberships. Who are the lucky recipients of that, Jacko?
Very, very generous, Jason Bell. And I also like his choice of beer for tonight. Sounds exactly like what I would be having, but he's given it to Berbatov's Halftime Smoke. Big up to Dan. Remo has been gifted it. Round Table Talk. Herbie Hurts Feelings, and the Spurs bench. All people that we're all very familiar with. So very, very generous of you, Jason Bell. And I think all those people we would love to see make a debut sometime on the show. But all those guys, I think, have been very, very kind to us. So thank you, Jason Bell. Very, very much appreciated.
Big up, Jason Bell. Very, very kind to you, my man. Look, he's been around a long time. We need to speak to you at some point, Jason. I'm not letting you hide away there. We need to speak to you at some point as well, my man. We've got Faz Radfar 4-1 Spurs says, cut out the mistakes. Otherwise, we can't win 4-1. Go on, you Spurs. Look, you're absolutely spot on. The mistakes have to be cut out tonight. I think that back line very earlier on will set the tone for everybody else. I think if they're nervous and erratic on the ball, I think you see the same with the midfield, the same with the front line. I think if they can show that composure, like Romero, Vicario, who are in that leadership group, if they can show that composure, I think then it filters through the rest. So it's just, honestly, I think it comes down to how we start this game. What we can't do is, again, we're all here, right? It was the same as the home leg. We're all here again. We're all built up. We're all excited. We all believe. But just don't take the goodwill out of it 5-10 minutes into the game by conceding. Try and keep it and build on it. That's what I would say, Faz Radfar. But Soren, I want to move into the midfield. I'm going to start with you. Lucas Bergvall made a costly mistake at Wolves, and it's not the first time this season we've seen he's made similar errors against Newcastle, twice against AZ Alkmaar, which have become detrimental this season. And look, at the end of the day, he's only 19. He's still developing. And to be fair, he was one of our brightest players in the first leg, nearly scoring from that rocket off the bar. But in the context of a massive European quarter-final, and with the manager's job reportedly on the line, can we really trust Bergvall to start tonight? Or is this a moment to go with someone more experienced, like a Papa Massar in a must-win game? Because, look, I do think Bergvall is a smashing young talent. But I think if he makes a mistake, like I've highlighted this season, it's a pattern. It's going to become detrimental tonight. It's going to become really, really costly. So can we trust Bergvall in this environment tonight? You go back to the Galatasaray away one, he got picked left, right, and centre as well.
I think the simple answer to it is, yeah, we can trust him. Whether we will trust him is a different matter. I think you know, we've looked at the players, and yes, you know, he does have a mistake in him, but that's the beauty of it. It's a bit like Romero, that these players, you know, we have to trust them because of something that they might do rather than a mistake that they might do. But I just wonder whether he'll go with Maddison and Kulu in the middle. And you know, it's one of those that you kind
fit
of
enough
just
to play.
Pardon?
Think Kulu's fit enough to play?
Well, this is the question. I think he's been kind of saved because I think his fitness levels are brilliant anyway. And I think Kulu is that dogged player that as much as he is brilliant going forward, he has that ability to defend as well. But the other side, will he bring him on later in case we go to penalties? You know, is he a better option for penalties than Bergvall? You know, I think until the lineup comes out, it's a guessing game, but it wouldn't surprise me either way if either Kulu starts in midfield or Bergvall starts in midfield. And I think either way, you just got to trust the players. You've just got to trust them. Tonight's not a night to worry. You know, leave the worry until after the game. Leave. And this isn't a go at anybody. Leave the negative thoughts. We've just got to be positive. We've got to think that tonight's the night.
No, I know that, right? But the reason why I maybe asked that question, sorry, maybe give you a bit more background, is that, you know, I think with Bergvall, right, once or twice is a mistake, but 3 or 4 times is a pattern.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand that he likes to take risks, get on the half turn and try and dribble that ball forward. I absolutely understand that. But if that was Papamata Sarr making their mistakes, people would be all over him for it. You know, I've been quite surprised about the reaction that Papamata Sarr has got this season. And even if we want to talk about end product, Papamata Sarr has more end product this season than someone like Lucas Bergvall as well. And I just don't think Sarr is as bad as people make out. And I just question, in a game like tonight, where the first 15 minutes you do expect to be pressed and them to use the adrenaline in the home ground, would someone like Papamata Sarr, who although may have played poor at the weekend, he didn't make a mistake that cost us a goal. And I just wonder, you know, to have that bit of stability and then bring Bergvall into the game and let him impact it a bit later on. That was my thinking behind it, Soren.
That's why I say that I think Kulu might start with Maddison, because I think, to me, if you're going to look at it that way, and we've already said earlier on that the first 15, 20 minutes are important to make sure we're not behind and we're trying to get on top. Kulu's probably that driving force. Papsar, look, you know I love Papsar. I think he's a brilliant player, and I think he's going to be a big one for the future. Same as Bergvall. But I just think Bergvall, you've got that. He could do some, you know, his passing is probably better than Papsar's. He's just got that little bit of something about him. He's almost Podolesque. You know, he's got that beautiful pass. He's got that. He kind of sees things happening. For a young player, he's got that insight into something. But yes, he's got a mistake in him. But as much as I don't want to say what I'm about to say, Ange Postecoglou has always said he wants his players to keep trying and keep trying to do something. If you make a mistake, try again. You know, it will come off. And maybe tonight's that night where somebody like Bergvall goes on the pitch and just does something special. You know, yes, there's the chance of him making a mistake, but without being funny, every single player on that pitch has got a mistake in them. You know, Vicario's got a mistake in him. Van der Ven has, Romero has, Udogie has, Porro has, Spence has, Brennan Johnson has, Solanke. Every player has got a mistake in him. So as much as we say, well, yeah, Bergvall's made a couple of mistakes, I would say this season Vicario's made more mistakes. Romero's made probably more mistakes. So I would, if he's on the starting lineup, I have got no problem with it. Full stop. I think he'll do a job, and I think he'll be all right tonight. But there's a little thing in the back of my mind. I mean, I know Dermo's come out with a possible lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if Kulu starts tonight. But then I won't be surprised if he doesn't. So
yeah. No, I feel that. I just think to Dave's point, for me with Pop Matasar, I think for setting the tone, especially defensively in the first half, I think Pop Matasar brings more than probably the rest of the options. He's a guy that can sort of muck in defensively. He stands up to players. He doesn't get pushed around. He doesn't get bullied or anything. He puts in hard challenges as well. He kind of knows how to block up some of those passing lanes, I think, a bit better than other players do. Knows how to put himself in the right areas to intercept. Maybe whereas, like you say, with Bergvall, has a bit more of an X factor about him. He has more of sort of a bit of magic in his game. I just wonder if that might be more useful later on, when you are looking to either chase the game or if you're just looking for someone to bring, just a winner, of some kind, like a winning moment, whether it's a dangerous pass or a shot, or like Dave has brought up, Bergvall is very good at sort of taking us up the pitch. He can take on players. It's just, for me, as always, I do lean a bit more defensively in games like this, in the first half. Make sure you're solid and make sure you're not just getting played through super easily. And I think Pop Matasar brings that more than the other players do, especially alongside Bentancur. Those two guys, they can get stuck in, for this team, and they have shown that this season. So that's why I'd play Pop Matasar for like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, then look to take him off probably after that.
But would you not worry, Jack, about being too defensively early on rather than actually going for the throw?
See, this is the
thing. It goes both ways.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't think people analyze Papa Matasar's game fairly. I've seen that guy put balls in over the channel, to run onto and stuff like that. I've seen him put the balls between centre backs and fullbacks, this season, and last season for players to run onto, where a lot of our players struggle. And people praise Bergvall for his shooting. Papa Matasar actually finds the net with his efforts, and I just don't think Papa Matasar actually gets a fair crack at the whip, or people analyze his game. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm not putting down Bergvall. I think Bergvall's a fantastic talent. I think, I agree with Glenn Hoddle. Wait until the guy reaches 23, 24. The guy is going to be an insane talent. But I just think on a night like tonight, I just think it's a big risk if he gets dispossessed and the ball's put in the back of our own net. And the only reason why I brought it up, because it's been a pattern this season. It's not just once or twice. It's been 3 or 4 times. And that's what makes me a little bit concerned. But don't get me wrong. I understand what he does bring to this team. Out of any other option, especially with Kulu being out injured, he is the guy that, does pick up that ball and runs with it, sort of builds it from the back line into the forward line. He does that exceptionally well. But like the one on the weekend, I mean, it was just brain dead. The guy had his back turned away from him, wasn't even interested. He ran into him. He made him interested. All he had to do was turn out to the left, and that doesn't happen. We go on the attack. We look to go and get the equaliser. And it's just moments like that in a big European game where it comes costly. And I've already seen the European games get to him. AZ Alkmaar at home in our home stadium made a massive mistake that gave them a goal, let them back into it, and made the last 10 minutes nervy. Away from home, it was him that sliced that ball from the corner that ended up in the back of our own net. And I'm not being funny, but that's exactly what I'm concerned about tonight. And that's why, me personally, I would prefer to go with someone that has a bit more experience in these sort of games. And what I mean by that is, you go back to Papa Matasar last year against AC Milan, first European game, under Conte, first European game, San Siro away from home. That guy was our best player on the pitch that night. He was absolutely incredible. And I think people forget that. Whereas with this Europa League campaign, you look at Bergvall, some of his games, they haven't been the best, especially away from home. And that's why I would prefer to go with someone like a big game player like Papa Matasar, even just for the first 50, 60 minutes, and then bring on Bergvall. And that's just me personally. That's just the way I would play. He
scored goals for us in the Europa League. You're spot on. I think especially there was a period there where he was our best player in the Europa League for like a solid minute. But yeah, I mean, I think there are a variety of acceptable opinions on this one when it comes to midfield. That's for sure. Good questions, Dave. Good questions.
No, look, guys. Go on.
The only name we don't want to see in there is Bissouma.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. I do want to transition, though, because we do have a bit of time before the lineups come out, guys. I do want to speak about that striker option tonight, actually. So, hear me out. Here's the question. Richarlison grabbed the late goal in the defeat to Wolves, and despite battling persistent injuries over the past 2 seasons under Ange Postecoglou, he's managed 16 goals and 5 assists in 27 starts under Ange. That's 21 goal involvements in 27 starts under Ange Postecoglou. Meanwhile, Dominic Solanke is struggling to even register a shot on goal. And I just want to ask, does Richarlison's number suggest that supply maybe isn't necessarily the issue for Solanke, and that maybe it just comes down to quality? Because Richarlison doesn't have an issue with the supply, and I'd argue the goal he scored on the weekend, Dominic Solanke just doesn't sniff out. And I would nearly put it to the people, would you start Richarlison tonight now that I've brought that start and brought it to light?
What about Richarlison on the left and Solanke down the middle.
Do you waste them both though by doing that? Because then you're wasting both your strikers.
It depends
Energy
when you
wise,
look
I
at
mean.
it and think we've got to score early and win the game quickly.
Yeah, no, for me, you got to start Dominic Solanke. Richarlison's great. He's great. He's awesome. He has no technical ability. He can't make the ball stick. I don't want to run him into the ground to the point where he gets himself to an injury. I don't want to run Richarlison into the ground to the point where it's like he makes up for his lack of his overall ability and just work ethic, which is great. But because of that, he runs himself into the ground. He gets these crazy injuries. So, like, we look back to the last time we were in Europe in the Champions League, before he got knocked out there, and he rescued us with a couple good headers there against Olympique Marseille, right? And so also I'm thinking of late impact against Brentford, where he famously juggled the ball and then Brendan Johnson cleaned him out, and he did like an outside foot Trivella to Harry Kane. I'm thinking other good impacts off the bench. Liverpool away at Anfield there. So yeah, Dominic Solanke, and also the reason why he's scoring all these goals off of low percentage chances and low services is because he's been at the club for 3 years now. 3 seasons now. This is 3rd season.
Well, this is just the 2 seasons under Ange Postecoglou.
So it's at the point where it's like these players have played with him and they know Pogba now. They know who he's about. They know how he's angry. They know how he presses hard. He can't really stick it. He probably doesn't dribble well at practice compared to the likes of like a Bergvall or I'm trying to think of really technical players. Even Spans is really technical. So they know that he just has to ping it into these high percentage chances, and like he's more of like a fox in the box. Whereas Dom just came in this season. He's technical. He can hit when he's on. He can stick the ball. He's tall. He's big in the air. They're learning to play together and stuff. Don't get me wrong. The Dominic now is not the same Dominic that was in that Leicester game. Here he's hitting everything first time, and he should have gotten a goal in that Leicester game. And if he did break his duck in the Leicester game, he would probably have a different Dominic Solanke this season. But that being said, he did well in that United game. That half volley on that bad goalkeeper flop in the stadium. That was a great chance taken. So yeah, it's a one-off game. You've got to play Dominic and then have Richie as an impact sub, in my opinion. And then you do waste having both strikers on having a left winger, because then there's just no point, right? Like, why have Matisse Tell in the squad then, right? So that's just my opinion though.
Like I just look at it, right, and I look at them starts underneath Ange Postecoglou, 21 goal involvements in 27 games, and I look at Dom Solanke this season, and look, to be fair, Richarlison's been more injured than what Dom Solanke has, and I just look at it, and I just think, when I look at how Dom Solanke is getting on, I think the longer the season goes on, I actually think the worse he's getting, and the more he's struggling to a large degree, and I just can't help but even think the last time Richarlison played for Tottenham, which was against Everton off the bench, he put one straight in the back of the net, and I just think, what we need up front is a real pigeon, a guy that feeds off crumbs, because that's all you get off the front line, right, is crumbs. But a guy that can feed off them and put the ball in the back of the net. And I think that's what Richarlison does exceptionally better than what someone like Dominic Solanke does. Even when Dominic Solanke gets the ball to his feet, or even half chances appear, I'll be honest,
hasn't been taken.
I often find his striking underwhelming. I've looked at a lot of Liam Delap highlights and that this year, and I just look at the way that guy strikes a ball compared to the way Dominic Solanke strikes a ball. I'm just not sure it's ever really going to click for Solanke at Tottenham personally. And I've held off for a long time. I've given him more than enough time to try and prove me wrong this season. I just find myself, when I look at him, I just want a lot more. And I've got to
but then the play just breaks down with Richarlison too much.
One second, let me finish. I'll get to the point, where I look at it right now, and it's just like I'm praising the guy for hard work, but that's the bare minimum. But with Richarlison also works his nuts off. But the difference is he can find a goal in this system. Solanke can't. And that's why I would make the argument. If I'm Postecoglou, looking at them stats under Richarlison starting underneath Ange, if he's fit for a large portion of this game where he can do 60, 70 minutes, I start him tonight ahead of Dominic Solanke. Dominic Solanke's had long enough to prove he can score a goal, and he can't. Even against Southampton, 3 or 4 opportunities flashing for him. Couldn't find the back of the net. I have more faith in Richarlison tonight. That's just me.
And also,
we all have our own opinions, mate. And like you said, like Richarlison came off the bench and scored against Everton, but then you said off the bench, right? So like I said, he's a great player. He scores lots of chances off the bench. So comes off, does his role off the bench. I think that he's going to be great.
No, I get what you're saying. We all have our own opinions. This is what this whole YouTube thing is. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. But what I'm trying to say is the stats that I'm reading, the 16 goals and 5 assists, they're not all off the bench. You only cherry pick these last 2 goals. I'm talking about the last 2 years on the Range. The broader bite-sized sample shows, and he wasn't always off the bench on the Range.
Yeah, but the lad can't take a touch to save his life. The lad can't take a touch to save his life. Like I can, my Like I
Fucking
coach
right, down
I coach 14 girls that can take a better touch than him, man. Like you take a touch and he bounces off him, and like he's great, right? Van Dijk took one elbow in the back of his head, took him out of the game. That's how easy it is to rattle him, right? So he's not it.
Harsh.
And I think the main problem is here Tottenham Hotspur having replaced a big number 9, big number 10 to the point where we don't have this conversation where it's just boom right in the lineup. Like if we had an Alexander Isak right now, that'd be amazing. But who we got here? There you go, Solanke.
Yeah, I know he's starting, but the whole conversation was, would you prefer
Yeah.
Richarlison? You know, it's not about being proven right or wrong. Anyway, let's not be petty. Let's move on. Let's go to the lineup. We've got in goals. We've got Vicario in goals. We've got Pedro Porro at right back. Romero and Van de Ven in at centre back. Adogi in at left back. Bentancur, Bergvall and Maddison in the midfield. Johnson off the right. Solanke off the middle. And Tell comes in to replace the injured Son. Jacko, honestly, my eyesight isn't that great today. Can you read that,
Sorry. Austin, Whiteman, Spence, Davis, Danzo, Gray, Basuma, Sarr, Kulusevski, Moore, Odebear, and Richarlison. So in terms of attacking options, you have Mikey Moore, Odebear, Richarlison, and Kulusevski. In terms of the midfield, Basuma, Sarr, and Gray. And then the back line, you have Jed Spence, Davis, and Kevin Danzo. Kulusevski on the bench, Odebear on the bench, which is a big surprise for me. And I think, probably the rest of it, we sort of debated earlier, but there you are, everybody. Very, very similar. Is it the same team against Frankfurt in the first leg? Isn't it the exact same team?
Did Ted start against Frankfurt?
No, he didn't. Sorry. We had Sonny there. So,
I think the rest of it's the same, though.
The rest of it is the same.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Interesting. So, big call from, of course, this is the lineup that Ange Postecoglou is putting his future into.
Well, look, Jack, one thing you have been speaking about, is that, game changers off the bench on a game like tonight. You'd argue Kulusevski, Odebear, Richarlison, Mikey Moore, Papa Matasar to a degree. You do have them sort of Spence. You do have them guys off the bench that can change the game, which gives me a little bit of hope tonight. Look, let's wait and see. It's a big ask, honestly. Closer kickoffs getting, the more nervous I'm getting.
How soon does Ange Postecoglou use those substitutions, right? That's part of the issue is that, and I've questioned this. Everyone has, I think, questioned this at some point, right? His game management in games it's been very questionable, where there have been times when the game is called out for substitutions to be made and he doesn't make the right ones, or he makes them too late. And you wonder, with all these impact players off the bench being Richarlison, Kulusevski, and Odebear, and potentially even someone like a Pop Matasar or Jed Spence, it's just, will he bring them on soon enough, and will he bring on the right ones? It's always the big question. But
that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, anybody else? Dave and I will, of course, talk about this during the watch along. So please, everybody, follow us over there to the watch along. Get ready for it. It's the big one. It's the big night. It's the big evening. But I think we'll kind of wrap up with everybody else's thoughts, on the lineups here. So I'll go to Soren. Soren, thoughts on the lineups?
Just quickly, Lily White, Indy. He's not available. He's not registered in the squad, my man. There's 4 players not registered. There's Werner, Kinski, Forrester, and Reguilon. So you won't see them in any of the European squads. And
good to see DJ Samuel popping in. Big up to you, DJ. Soren, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the only one that's kind of surprising in there is probably Tell, but I think he's there because he knows the atmosphere. He'll know, he shouldn't face him. He's going to know what he's walking into.
And he plays on the left before.
He plays on the left, yeah. I just think it's one of those that, we talk about kind of keeping Richie in that for penalties. We can't think about it going to penalties because we're not a team that. I mean, I know we drew the first leg, but how often do we draw a game to make it go to penalties?
True.
So
True.
I think the only option we've got is to go out and win. Is this team good enough to go out and win? Yeah. Will we go out and win? Yeah. Let's just get behind the team, and it's going to be 2-1 tonight. 2-1 Tottenham.
2-1.
You got an approval from your twin as well.
Yeah, your twin's in here. Soren Zilla makes some great points. Your twin's in here. 2-1. Look, I'd snap your fucking hands off it for it now, Soren, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't even need an amazing performance. I just need to be on the right side of the scoreline tonight, lad. Dermo, thoughts on the lineup and the score prediction, lad? And Dermot's channel link in here as well, so make sure you get across and smash on that, lads.
Thank you you're very kind. The rumoured lineup I put in was nearly right. It's only one player. different from the rumored lineup I actually put in the chat. It was, don't know. Was it one player, Van der Ven?
Star, I think, was the only difference in it.
Yeah. So it was nearly right. Close but no cigar. Look, I just very quickly on the Johnson thing, I would have started Richarlison tonight, Dave. I do agree with you on that.
Tyler actually makes a good point here, Dermo. Maybe you can expand on it, where he says, no, Spence is absolutely criminal, man, and Johnson is on Porro's side. How the hell are we going to defend this side? Because that is a side that has leaked a lot of goals.
Yeah, I think Tyler's right. Tyler's right. I mean, Johnson's not great on coming back and defending, and he does leave Porro very isolated and got a lot of work to do himself. But look, I think it's a team that can win. I think that's a team that's going to go and do a job. I would have started Richarlison ahead of Solanke. I think your stats, what you said over them 2 years, Dave, do speak a lot of volumes. I think Solanke works hard, but you're supposed to be a striker. Your job is to score goals, and you haven't scored since January. So I think you need to put Richarlison in there. But
do you think Solanke could surprise the likes of me and you tonight, though, Dermo, and bag one, send us through, be the hero?
I would love him to. I don't think he will. I would love him to, but I don't think he will. I mean, he's more of an attacking midfielder than he is a striker. He's not a prolific 20-25 a goal a season striker. You're not going to get that from him. So that's where we need to sort out in the summer very drastically. But I'm going for I'm going for a 3-0 win in Frankfurt tonight.
Fucking hell. I'll take that as well.
I know someone's shaking his head. I've been building up to it. I started with 1-0 in my predicted video I did for you guys. So I'm building up for it. By kickoff, I was going for 5-0, but I'm going for a 3-0 tonight. I agree with Soren. It's in the stars tonight. Something's going to happen. The cockerel's going to crow.
I hope so.
That we're all going to be dancing around the sitting rooms and our kitchens or wherever tonight. We're going to be there. It's going to go. I now have to jump off, so I'm starting my show in a minute. Guys, thanks for having me on again. And please like and subscribe here. This is the best channel, Irish channel on YouTube with Dave and Jack. They do fantastic work for your members. Big up your memberships as well, because they do a hell of a lot for you members. And we're so grateful for the work and the opportunity you give us on YouTube. So thank you so much, guys. And as I said, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
We're going to win tonight. The Europa League's coming home to the lane.
Come on, the 3-1. Big up the Tron. Thank you, sir.
As usual, he gets a mixed reaction. Scottwork says, Dermo, for God's sake. Kurt Smith says, he does score Dermo, wrong system. Adam D says, Dermo, uncharacteristically optimistic. And June Sillen says, absolute lunacy, but I'm here for it. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Dermo. And then RDRS for see, good to see you. Says, clean sheet. Yeah, no. Absolutely love that. And last but not least, Donovan, what's your thoughts on the lineup? Do you think it's a good enough one to, you spoke earlier on in the stream about, how to manage, the first sort of half and stuff like that, break it down into 15-minute segments and stuff. Do you think that's a good enough lineup to execute, your game plan tonight? And what's your score prediction, lad?
Good question.
First of all, lad, thanks a lot, and big up to you and Jack. Big love for you, the love I have for you gentlemen, and not just for you guys, like the Irish people in general, like Dave, Dermo just said before I hopped off, like go through history, talk about proud history, proud heritage. I have a lot of respect for everyone here, and thanks for letting me use this platform. And it gets spicy, but hell, that's because it's match day and we all want to win, man. Dominic Solanke is not a 25-goal striker season, and unfortunately, we might have to have a conversation about how we spent that 60 million, but we don't need a 25 goals tonight. We just need one.
Might not be having it if he scores tonight, man.
Yeah, if you look
exactly. So you in this lineup, you asked. I think we can all look at this lineup and see how good it is. It is crazy good. Like that is a really, really good lineup. The only question mark is Tell, right? And so there's a little bit of animosity on that right hand side. I'm going to bite my tongue, because I have an opinion of Brennan Johnson that hopefully he comes through on his defensive side of the game. That being said, I'm going for a 4-1 victory, but nobody's going to care about it because Arsenal knocked out Real Madrid of the Champions League. And then we're going to fly under the radar. And then it's all going to be talk about Declan Rice's free kicks and how Arsenal are like in the Champions League semifinal and whatnot. And we're going to continue our business under the radar. And then after the first couple of goals, it's going to be a deflated balloon release, and it's going to be like, okay, wow, this is what we can do, because this is giving us feelings of that Pochettino run back when the Champions League balls were orange with the stars and they looked great. And Liverpool did a great comeback, and we did the great comeback at Amsterdam, and that was a far better team than this Frankfurt team, and we've come a long way since then. So,
fair point.
4-1.
Point.
Come on, let's do it.
Do you know what? That's the thing, Donovan. You mentioned I actually mentioned it. I didn't want to sort of, bring it up today, but we were dead and buried. We were absolutely dead and buried at halftime. We were down. We lost at home. We were losing at halftime. But Lucas Moura picked us up, and grabbed us by the scruff of the neck. And not a player that many people thought would. Could we see
on a third goal, he rose again?
Yeah, exactly. Could we see something similar tonight? Can Tell be that guy tonight? Ken Johnson miraculously turn into John Aldino? Who knows? But look, I want to say a massive thank you to Soren, to Dermo, and to Donovan. These guys really wanted to be here for today's pre-match build-up for the biggest game of the season. So massive respect to these lads. Look, this is all about opinions. I know some people out there might not agree, but respect the time that they give up to come here and do this. I also want to say a massive thank you to all you lot at home as well. Really appreciate everybody tuning in today. Over 800 people in the house, which is absolutely insane, which just goes to show, people inside the club question our support. Well, it goes to show that our support is always here, no matter what. It's just we think you take it for granted. Now it's for your time to show up tonight. So thank you, everybody out there, for tuning in. We will be back in half an hour's time for the watch along. And I want to say a massive thank you to the people that have gone the extra mile today. It really does help us out a lot. The Big D, Dermatron, the Big D again, Matthew, K32, Levy Towers, Daniel Larson, Schlurwage, Wayne Bonner. We've also got Levy Towers a couple of times. Really appreciate it, man. We've got Sonam, Ben Francis, Blaine Devlin, Ryan Trestane, Q7, Jason Bell, Faz Radfar. Really appreciate it, guys. I also want to say big up Dark Sun G as well. And then I think Paddy Harnett is also coming in there at the end as well. I don't see you, Paddy. Good to see you, my man. And big up Kurt Smith. Let me know if you're back in for the Leinster semi-final, my man. Let me know. A big up all there, SFC. But guys, that's it from us. It's an absolute massive. Why do I keep clicking on that? It's an absolute massive game tonight. We've got to try and get the win. We've got to try and get into a European semi-final. Look, I love this, the underdog story. Everything telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. So hopefully we can get that done tonight. Guys, we'll see you back here in half an hour. And as fucking always, come on.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on.
Come on, you Spurs.